Chapter 1172, Unperturbed. Klein stared at the parchment in front of him for a long time without moving. After a while, he gently tapped the edge of the long mottled table, causing all the items that he conjured to disappear. He summoned his golden pocket watch and opened it to take a look. He sent a message to Little Sun, informing him to prepare to participate in the tarot gathering. About 1,000 heartbeats later, dark red beams of light rose from the two sides of the long bronze table, condensing into different figures on different high-back chairs. Without any gaps in time, all the members of the tarot club looked at the figure sitting at the very end who was shrouded in gray fog. Seeing that Mr. Fool wasn't wearing a monocle, Leonard inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he turned around and looked at the bottom of the long, mottled table to confirm the situation of the world Klein Moretti. Similar to him, Katlia, Audrey, and Fors instinctively turned their attention to the world Jayaman Sparrow after seeing Mr. Fool. One of them knew that the world was in a dangerous situation and could only seek Mr. Fool's blessings. Another had failed to receive any feedback for 2 days, and she suspected that Jayaman Sparrow had really been embroiled in the matter regarding George III, with something definitely having happened during that time. The final one knew that George III's matter was extremely risky and was a little worried that Mr. World would suffer serious injuries. Seeing that the world Jayaman Sparrow was perfectly fine without any abnormalities, Audrey retracted her gaze, curtsied, and bowed towards the end of the long bronze table. "Good afternoon, Mr. Fool Tilda." With the world situation becoming even more chaotic, she felt a little comforted by the fact that the tarot club could still maintain its original state. This significantly improved her mood. After the tarot club members bowed under Miss Justice's lead, the Fool Klein nodded slightly, indicating for everyone to sit down. Then he slowly surveyed the area and smiled. "It seems all of you were very concerned whether today's tarot gathering would proceed as usual." Upon hearing this, Alger's heartbeat sped up as he heard thumping sounds. Without a doubt, he believed that Mr. Fool was referring to him and was giving him a gentle punishment. In other words, he had given him a chance to repent. Alger lowered his head and said with a trembling voice, "We weren't pious enough and thought too much." Why is Mr. Hanged Man apologizing on my behalf?" Fors, who had instructed Zio to ask Mr. Fool if the tarot gathering would proceed as scheduled, was stunned for a moment before she gave up on thinking. She then turned to the end of the long bronze table and lowered her head. She repeated, "We weren't pious enough and thought too much." So I wasn't the only one who prayed to Mr. Fool over the past few days. Mr. Hanged Man claims to have overthought things because there was a possibility that the tarot gathering would be cancelled, causing him to have some unnecessary speculations. But Fors shouldn't have thought of that. Audrey looked across the table and then to her sides, feeling enlightened. The Fool nodded and looked around again. Such concern is considered normal. He laughed and sighed. "I've recently used the world's body to play a game with Ammon in the Forsaken Land of the Gods. Thankfully, we didn't have to skip this tarot gathering." Everything he said was the truth, but what the others would decipher from this information was definitely far from the actual situation. And this way, even if the news of the world Jayaman Sparrow being equal to the Fool was released, the members of the tarot club would only sneer in their hearts that Ammon was trying his deceitful tricks again. To have a period of time that the world was equal to the Fool didn't necessarily mean that the world was always equal to the Fool. A portion of the truth was also a lie. Played a game with Ammon? Old Man's guess was right. Mr. Fool was deliberately using Klein to bait blasphemer Ammon. From the looks of it, he had obtained a rather satisfactory outcome, allowing Ammon to suffer a terrible loss. Leonard, who had long come up with speculations, felt that this was completely in line with his expectations and didn't doubt Mr. Fool's words at all. Mr. Fool didn't reply for 15 minutes because he was in a critical moment battling Ammon. He has already recovered to such a state. Audrey was pleasantly surprised and shocked when she heard that. For some reason, she felt a strong sense of honor. Alger could also tell from Mr. Fool's words that he had taken another step towards his recovery. He was actually able to hold the upper hand against a king of angels. This made him even more frustrated at himself for having doubts and testing the Fool. Mr. Fool had hinted in advance that the tarot gathering might be cancelled because he had long predicted that there would be a conflict between him and Ammon. In fact, it's even possible that he had taken the initiative to create this episode by setting up a trap for Ammon. Alger instantly made many connections and felt that there was no way he could hide his thoughts in front of such a high-level existence. He warned himself once again, "I can't do such things again." So Mr. World didn't provide any feedback because his body was being used by Mr. Fool to resist Ammon. That King of Angels, Ammon, is truly powerful. Mr. Fool actually needed to personally take action. Fours and Zio exchanged looks, not having any more doubts about their previous questions. Katlia roughly understood the reason why the world had disappeared. She also guessed that the messenger who had the contractual ties with the world likely wasn't able to enter the forsaken land of the gods. At the same time, she was surprised by the appearance of a king of angels appearing on stage in the present times. She felt that this was one of the signs of the apocalypse. Emlyn wasn't aware of what happened recently. He merely looked at everyone with a somewhat blank look. For some baffling reason, he felt that he had been locked behind Channy's gate for far more than a week or two. Perhaps it had been a month or two, to the point that he felt like he no longer had a grasp over the current situation. Mr. World has come to the forsaken land of the gods. Did Mr. Fool use his body to engage in a battle with that terrifying Ammon? Derek was first alarmed before he felt a strong sense of joy. This meant that the City of Silver's next exploration would receive tremendous help. He immediately looked towards the end of the long bronze table, and he blurted out, "Honorable Mr. Fool, the chief wishes to receive your blessings for a ritual. Are you agreeable to such a request?" Having long learned of this from his prayers, Klein nodded slightly and said, "Sure." After receiving his promise, Derek couldn't help but smile. For a moment, he didn't know how to express his gratitude. 2 seconds later, he lowered his head and said loudly, "My faith lies only with Mr. Fool." The Fool nodded and turned to look at Ma'am Hermit. He warmly said, "What questions do you have this time?" The Queen didn't say anything in her letter. Katlia was taken aback as she decided to first ask something she wanted to know. After all, she could still ask several questions. She deliberated for 2 seconds before saying, "Honorable Mr. Fool, what's the truth behind George III's death?" The moment the hermit said that, Justice Audrey and company immediately focused their attention. This was exactly what they wanted to know. Amongst them, the Star Leonard had a certain level of understanding over the matter. He was more concerned about the deeper reason behind this incident. And among the members of the Tarot Club, the only one who was more confused about the situation was Imlin. His mind was filled with thoughts like, "What?" and "What happened?" He hadn't even read the newspapers recently, so he didn't know that King George III had been assassinated. As for the son, although he wasn't sure why George III died for no reason, he didn't care at all. The Fool Klein smiled and said calmly, "George III wanted to become the Black Emperor. And for this reason, he dug up the Tudor ruins, engaged in human trafficking, and created the Great Smog of Backland. He initiated a war, allowing the Fasak airships to bombard Backland. Unfortunately, he failed at the final ritual, and the secret mausoleum he needed for the ritual was destroyed." He briefly described the entire incident in the calmest tone he could make, doing so without mentioning what he had done. It would be beneath Mr. Fool to explain the situation on his own accord. The Great Smog of Backland, the airship raid, this was all done by George III to become a god. Audrey's eyes widened as she instantly recalled the two things she had experienced before. Suddenly, she understood why the world Jayaman Sparrow wanted to stop George III from becoming a god. She knew that he was a gentle and kind gentleman, and he would definitely not allow the culprit behind these two tragic cases to go scot-free. "If it were me, I would also have thought of doing so, but I would hesitate and be stopped by the possibility of ill developments. As for Mr. World, he is firm and decisive. This is a matter that involves the deities. Yes, there should also be the will of Mr. Fool in this matter." Audrey glanced at the world Jayaman Sparrow, who was sitting silently at the other end of the long, mottled table. She nodded slightly to express her agreement. Black Emperor, George III wished to become a god? This. Yes, Mr. Fool has the Black Emperor card of blasphemy. J.M. Sparrow was previously investigating the matter of the Great Smog and human trafficking. Indeed, all of these are connected together. There was actually such a secret hidden behind it. From the looks of it, Mr. Fool's goal has been achieved. His plan has succeeded. Therefore, he has taken one more step towards his recovery. He can now face off with a king of angels head-on. The more Alger thought about it, the more fearful and spirited he became. He felt that, despite knowing of some clues ahead of time, he was completely unaware of Mr. Fool's setup. Amidst the shock experienced by Leonard, Fours, and the other members of the Tarot Club, Katlia, who already had a premonition, suppressed her emotions and decided to ask another question. Honorable Mr. Fool, what's the attitude of the 7 deities regarding this matter?